Hey, it's Random Code here, and today I want to showcase how we can set up Flask in Docker. So I just have a very simple setup where I have my Dockerfile and an app.py file which contains my Flask setup. And if you don't know, Flask is a Python library that allows us to do backend in Python. And in this case, just create a very simple web page, which is just very simply on my route / have the simple text displaying hello world. So just a very simple setup, and that's what I like to show on this default route. Someplace locally hosted. So what we would like to do is we would take this app.py file, put it inside a Docker container, which would be running Python and Flask, and we would then port forward it to our local machine. But first, just to create our Docker file, which is what we're going to be using to create our container, we are starting from Ubuntu. So I'm using Ubuntu as my basic image. I'm then apt-update, so updating my apt package manager. And then install Python and Python 3 plus pip, which is a kind of like a tool that allows us to install other Python stuff like Flask, for example. So first we update our apt, then install our Python 3 with pip, then use pip to install Flask. We then set a working directory inside our Docker container, because if you know a bit about Flask, it uses this /app as the main directory for our setup, in this case our app.py file. And we then copy everything from our current folder to our current folder inside our container, which is going to be our working directory, in this case our /app. So we copy both our Docker file and our app.py file to our working directory. Doesn't matter that we also copy the Docker file, because it's not going to do anything, but it's just quicker. We then, whenever the container is done loading, we would then like to run our Flask application, which is simply done by using, so we're using like run Python 3, and then a module, going to be Flask, and regarding this Flask module, which you're going to run it, and it's going to be hosted on 000, and in this case, so let me just showcase what we would do. So I'm just going to open inside integrated terminal, and this integrated terminal is going to be inside PowerShell environment, because I am on Windows, but I think more or less everything I'm doing here would work on Mac and Linux as well. But let me first just clear it. So if we do ls, we can see we have our app.py and our Docker file. I would then just simply first build it. So do docker build, and then I would give it a tag, so kind of like a name, call it Flask. And I'm then going to tell the position of where I'm going to build, which is just a dot, which is our current position. So for me, this is going to be relatively quick because I built it previously, but for you, it might take a few minutes to build it the first time. Because like Docker needs to get all these components installed and set up before it can run. Now, let me just actually check it actually worked. So we can just do docker images, and here you can see we'd have the Flask image. And as you can see, mine were created a few minutes ago because I just did it before starting recording, as I just mentioned, so you don't have to wait. But yours would probably just be a few seconds ago. We can then take our image and then run it, start a container. So we do docker run d, because I'm running as dormant, which is kind of like in the background. Because otherwise, when I then start my Flask environment here, it would take control over my terminal. So I would like it dormant. And then we need -p, because we are port forwarding. So if you know a bit about Flask, you might know that Flask is like set up to be exposing to port 5000, which I haven't changed obviously because I'm just doing a very simple program. So what we can do is we can port forward from port 5000 to port 5000, which just make it a bit easier. So we're going to be exposing from our container, which our Flask application is going to be exposing port 5000. We're then telling our container that from inside container, which is this one at the right, port 5000 is going to be exposed outwards on port 5000 as well. So locally hosted in this case. So from our container, look at this port to outside our container, or kind of like in our Docker environment. So where we're setting up our Docker container, in this case on my computer, exposed to 5000. And then we're going to do Flask as our image and build from. So it gives you a few seconds to build. And now, when I go inside any web browser and do localhost 5000, we should see hello world. And just to demonstrate actually is what is happening. So if I just clear this and go docker yes to see all my running containers, I could do docker stop, and then my container ID, stop my container. And whenever it's done stopping the container, there we go. We can see that our local host, if we reload the page, it's loading and doesn't work anymore. There we go. So that is pretty much what we do and how we can set up a Flask application inside a Docker container. Have your Flask application, in this case just made a very simple example. And then inside our Dockerfile, starting from Ubuntu, could technically skip these 3 steps by actually getting from some kind of Flask base image. You could probably find something on Docker Hub, or definitely can find something, but I like doing it from Ubuntu so I actually know exactly what's going on and exactly what's been installed. But update apt, install Python with pip, use pip to install Flask, set my working directory /app, copy everything from our current directory to our working directory, and then start our, in this case, Flask environment in the container. And then we run our container, we expose port forward our Docker port, Flask port from 5000 to our locally hosted port, but you could also technically expose to any port. Let me just showcase quickly. Instead of exposing to port 5000, we could do like 5500. And also if you did docker ps, see that our machine port 5500 is looking at port 5000. And now if we go here, reload, nothing on port localhost 5000, but if you go localhost 5500, you get hello world again. So this was my quick showcase of how we can get a Flask application running inside a Docker container, and then draw this or get this information from our Docker container to show it locally hosted. So if you enjoyed this quick showcase, please leave a like and subscribe, and I wish you all a wonderful day.